Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pinkbike podcast. I'm Henry, and this week joining me we have Kaz, Taj and Brian to talk. I was saying Brian Park, I think, in my head, then I said Tark. Let's go again. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pinkbike podcast. My name is Henry, and this week I'm joined by Kaz, Taj and Brian to talk all things bike breakages. What should break, what's reasonable to break, why things perhaps do break, and whether in fact we'd want to ride the bikes that don't break. Kaz, you've been testing bikes for a long time. Have bike breakages got more or less common, or have they just changed?
I'd say they're less common. Yeah, I think, yes, less common in general. They still happen, but they're not as common. And yeah, we'll get into the different ways that bikes can break. But I think overall it has gotten
We're
better.
in a pretty good time, right?
Yeah.
Now, Taj, you're somewhat the inspiration for this pod because you do suffer, BMX background, hate to say it, the meme lords will be happy, but I've seen you ride and the way that you load transfers is really quite impressive, and you do find, I believe, that you can push bike parts without even necessarily deliberately doing so.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around how to ride mountain bikes because my brain wants to just manhandle my bike and force it to do whatever I will it to do. But I think, you guys should tell me, but I think mountain bikes take a little more nuance than that, and I maybe shouldn't push things quite that hard. But yeah, I've had quite a lot of failures, and it can be frustrating.
And Brian, you had a free ride past back in the day. Yeah, so what were the things that you were breaking when you were really getting into your... It sounds kind of silly now, but were you a free rider? Is that true?
Sure, yeah.
Actual free rider?
Actual free rider.
I
had a drop in TV. That gives you all the cred.
I wanted so badly to be in a mountain bike movie when I was a child. But I remember, I was thinking about this. I remember going for rides, like go to Penticton, like the next town over, and we were going to trail ride and then maybe do some urban riding after. And I remember bringing a spare bottom bracket, a spare square taper bottom bracket, because they all broke.
Yeah. And Kaz, so let's talk about, what things often fail. And let's talk about what's reasonable for it to fail. Like, for instance, for me, we were talking about this the other day, but things like rim failures aren't necessarily something that bothers me that much, as long as it happens straight away. But I think eventually shit happens, right?
Yeah, and again, it'll kind of depend on the material. I think we know aluminum rims don't last, as they're not indefinite use items.
Can you ramp up the toxicity, Kaz? You're being too pragmatic. Just be like, yeah, everything fucking breaks. Carbon rims, man.
Stink. Yeah, I mean, again, I will say, like, even carbon has gotten better though, because initially when we first started testing carbon wheels, it seemed like every third one would break pretty easily.
What was the first carbon wheel that you rode that you thought, we're here now, or the one that you thought, we're there now?
I don't really know. I mean, I'd say like the last 5 years, it's like, some of those specialized Revol carbon wheels, they can all break. Like I can't think of most of the wheels that I've tested at some point end up breaking, and that's kind of how you know the end of their life has been reached. But like, I just don't think they don't happen as often, and they're not as brittle, I think.
Carbon wheels are a lot more like linear in their failure than aluminum wheels.
Yeah, you're not going to dent one, so you're going to like ride it, and then you're going to hit something wrong, and it's going to make a noise, and you look down and you say, "Oh, I broke my wheel." Hopefully, you can limp out. But
whereas aluminum, you can bang it around a bit and maybe limp it out.
Yeah, and I think as prices have gone down, it's almost like you can stomach it breaking once in a while compared to when all carbon wheels cost $3,000, and then they tended to break even more often. That's when like the price to performance to benefit, all that didn't seem like it added up. And now companies have lifetime warranties. They seem like the construction has gotten better. So I think there's people can make an argument for or against carbon, but it's less cut and dry.
Now, Brian, I'm gonna maybe ask you a question that we'll edit out later. Well, no, not that, but I may be surprising you with it. But it's just something that occurred to me. If you think carbon wheel failure Pinkbike, you might have your mind cast back to quite a highly sort of an article that blew up a couple of years ago regarding some Envy wheels which cracked.
Yep.
Which failed. Now, I'm sure we've all here broken wheels of any material, and shit happens to me. I'm not going to go into the specifics of that detail, but how do you think? Do you think that article would have had such a reception now, perhaps? Do you think it was maybe because it felt like almost there was a point where a couple of years ago where there was so much skepticism in the consumers, the mountain bikers, they almost wanted something. They almost wanted like a Wicker Man.
I think that's still the case. I think that Envy is a pretty easy target for people who are frustrated with how expensive bikes are today.
Yes.
And
Well, they didn't help themselves making that suit. It was like a clothing. It was like made of like all of pillows or something. It was like downy. They didn't help themselves. But go on.
Yeah, that's fair. They made like a, what was it, like a blanket, like a Snuggie?
Yeah, it was like a zip-up blanket you could buy for like $300.
It looked like Princess.
Carbon fiber Snuggie.
No, but imagine if Princess Leia was going skiing. That's what she would wear. It was this ridiculous down jacket with. It was horrific.
It was. I think it's just like a random lifestyle piece that people latched onto, us included.
Yeah.
But like for sure. I think that they are kind of a target because of the sort of premium position they hold, and they were the first, and so they're like the one that everybody compares against, and like that failure of that wheel was unacceptable. It was not good. I think it would have exactly the same effect if it happened today. In fact, I think it might be worse because I think it's even less acceptable
so
today.
True. And so just for, I think that a lot of people are very curious about was there any, I think it's probably gone on long enough, and maybe let's talk in more general terms. What's Pinkbike's stance on products that break during a review?
Well, what you're really asking is like, did Envy lose their shit? No, they didn't. They were really, really quite
and also,
good about it.
I wasn't here at the time. Mm-hmm. Like, let's shoot this straight. I think there were some quite salacious ideas around that review.
There sure were.
And the truth is actually quite boring.
Correct.
People work at different companies at different times, and wheels break.
Yes.
It's kind of, that was kind of the deal, am I right?
Yes.
Thinking? Yeah. But I think people do love, I think especially like you said, there's a target on Envy's back, right? Mm-hmm. Because they are, or at least I think they were for a time. Maybe things have changed up a bit now where they were like the ultimate bougie bike brand. Taj, have you ever been tempted by carbon wheels?
Not really. I had a set on a Santa Cruz bike, and I just felt like they were kind of flexy. Like they just felt like they flexed less distance, but sharper compared to aluminum, and I like couldn't get enough tension in them. They always felt rubbery to me.
I feel like Taj would be a good candidate for some of those like early Envy wheels that were so stiff, like crazy strong, but like they went way too far into stiff, and like nobody at that time had figured out how to make carbon wheels strong but not so stiff yet.
Yeah, compliance wasn't the buzzword then.
Yeah,
Like, here, this is carbon, it's stiffer and better, and then it just felt like you're riding on like wood.
But I feel like you might like that or benefit from that because it felt very direct, and part of that conversation too was it was early 29er time, so a lot of the bikes were kind of flexy in the back end, and so they would put carbon wheels on it, like brutally stiff carbon wheels on it, to sort of make the whole package slightly more acceptably stiff.
Yeah, that was my only experience with them, and it just felt like I couldn't track the bike where I wanted because it was a little, I don't know, just like it just felt like there was just flex. But
did you break them?
No. They were fine, and I didn't ride them very long at all because I had a set of aluminum wheels that I had like ridiculous tension in, and that felt better to me.
And so we spoke about this before, but you told me the other day that before you drop into a big ramp, you go to 120 psi and just crank on loads of tension on the spokes, right?
Oh yeah,
it's on a BMX.
On a BMX, yeah. Because the ramp is perfectly smooth. There's no traction needed. You just want speed, and any flex is robbing pumping speed, basically. So yeah, I'd switch out my frames and my cranks because they'd get flexed out, and tighten my spokes before a run, and not every run, but if I wanted to go high. And
how does that integrate? You ride a hardtail now. You're smashing about Whistler Bike Park on a steel hardtail. I'm taking you down we've done some runs where you've very admirably got down some tech stuff, like happy to give it a go, but it is rough, and it is, it's everything you probably wouldn't want to ride on a hardtail. Why don't you ride a full suspension bike?
Well, you guys are supposed to talk me out of it, I think, but I don't know. It just feels the most comfortable to me. That's the only reason. And I guess every time I get on a full suspension bike, I just break the shock, or something fails in the shock, without without fail, it fails. Can you say that?
Yes, I think you can. Yeah.
With fail.
With fail. Yeah, it happens too quickly, and it's so frustrating that I just give up on them.
And right, let's go to a very quick ad break here. Before we come back, and I want to talk to Kaz about shocks. Öhlins has now brought their famed mountain biking suspension to a shorter travel package. The brand is building on its race-winning success, and now has set its sights on delivering the same level of performance and adjustability from their downhill and enduro range to a shorter travel bike. Their new XC range will feature many of the things that you know and love about their products, and aims to make your lightweight XC or trail bike more capable than ever. You can check out their website for more information at ohlins.com, or why not keep an eye out for their products on World Cup race bikes, where they're equipping Team BMC to ride the roughest World Cup XCO tracks ever. In fact, they've already taken their first podium at the first race of the year. So guys, right, we're going to talk about shocks because I think that in terms of accepted failure, there were some frames, and I think it's become less common now, that used to maybe be... I think that if through flex and flex alone, we've kind of got to the point where frames aren't asking shocks to do too much and over-rely on the stiffness. There were some frames, those polygon bikes we used to have in the World Cups, they couldn't run and a coil shock, not because of any leverage rate, or that's what they said. It was just because it relied on the inherent stiffness of a larger shaft air shock. Do you think, what kind of, I don't know, can it ever be a case of shit happens with a shock with the braking, or should a shock last the length of a bike if it's regularly serviced?
Yeah, I mean, if it's regularly serviced, it should last the length of the bike. But I think, again, like you're kind of saying, there's been certain suspension designs that come out, and turns out that it puts a lot of load on the shock. If it side loads it, and then it can need to lead to early wear, or the seals get damaged, or just something happens. So I'd say like frame failures are probably more rare these days. But I think in the last few years we've seen a lot of shocks having issues due to whether it's on the shock manufacturer side or the frame manufacturer side, or a combination of both.
Just a misalignment between what they had to do, because it feels like you can make frames so many different ways. And sometimes if you think about, I'm looking at a transition repeater e-bike now, relatively kind of short link, but there's some that the links are so big with maybe small hardware, a lot of flex, or maybe even on the case of that polygon bikes, they just had like a foot long yoke to basically just do whatever they wanted.
And sometimes if the upper link isn't lined up with the lower shock mount, that shock is sitting at an angle and is getting loaded sideways. You wouldn't even think until you go to take the shock off and you realize that nothing lines up. So again, it's rare, but I've seen frames where things aren't in a straight line like they should be.
Kaz, do you see, like there was an era where everybody blew their shock all the time. Like it was always blowing a shock. And as leverage ratios have kind of like sorted out, am I right in thinking that we don't see that as much anymore? Taj notwithstanding?
Almost, but like I will say the Float X2, Fox Float X2, like that has had issues in the last couple of years. It seems like it was more of a QC thing, something with the materials rather than like a leverage ratio thing. And so there was a batch of those, and I think it was widespread enough that like now if you look in the comments, there's a lot of people who say like that shock's the worst, where if it's working well, it's a good shock, and if you have one, it can last a long time. But there was a batch, right. I would say that definitely. So I think sometimes things get amplified in the comments, but that shock is one that's the most recent one that we've had issues with.
I will say about like things that get amplified in the comments, I think we often see the things that get a lot of spec. Like for somebody that sells 100,000 of a thing and another company sells 100 of the thing. 3% failure on both of those things has a wildly different number of people in the comments upset about it.
But there always does seem to be, whichever time you're in, like the champion of failure for that time.
Yes.
And right now, sadly for the Fox, it is their time in the sun, But it feels like before that, I remember a couple of years ago, there was a big thing about
reverbs.
The Boxer, maybe 2015, maybe a bit earlier, would always get a lot of heat. Lots of things. Charger dampers would explode when they're Gen 1 because they'd ingest oil from the bottom and go pop. And there were lots of things like that. Maybe even, carbon wheels from time to time.
Carbon wheels,
yeah. The Öhlins fork, they had the issue. They had the recall of the fork.
Yeah.
The top cap. Basically, it was like there wasn't enough Loctite on the thread of the top cap of the Öhlins. You had to take it off and put Loctite was the fix, but apparently it could pop off.
Taj is here like, hey, you guys ever heard of these BMX bikes? There's like none of that shit to go wrong.
You just need a hammer to work on it.
That's yeah. Well, I still haven't quite given my disclaimer that I feel completely unqualified to be here, and my opinions are going to offer no one any help, I think.
The thing is, the general rule is you've got to accept the imposter syndrome and then fucking lean into it.
All right.
And just be like, just get into it.
Well, then I'll for the everyman with a BMX background perspective, it's really hard for me to like think I could buy a pro level BMX bike for like $1,000. I could jump it off a house. It's fine. Throw it down a set of stairs. It's fine. And a mountain bike that I can buy for $8,000, it might not make it down the hill. And it's partially because of my weight, right? Like I'm 250 pounds. So I'm like right at the max weight on most shocks.
But
and then I want it stiffer.
Heavy, but it's not like you're 350 pounds.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Could be. Oh, no, I'm not. But
but some people are.
Yeah,
and they want to ride mountain bikes too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm kind of worst case scenario because I want stuff stiffer than what it tells me to set it at too. But like, yeah. I mean, I'm heavier than most riders though. And
do you know what I find crazy? You can buy, like you said, an $8,000 mountain bike, and you can go on holiday, right? And people will be like, right, you're going to need this, this, and this, because these are the things you could break. There's so much on the mountain bike. And I understand that we want to get these bikes to the top of a hill. We want them to be light. But there are actually so many sort of, you know how they say your collarbone breaks so it doesn't just stab you in the neck? There are so many collarbones on a mountain bike. Things that are kind of sacrificial lambs just to fall by the wayside.
I mean, it's because we're the engine and we're a really shitty engine, right? Like BMX, nobody was worried about I mean, I guess they are now. Like I've seen a little bit that there's like some weight weenieism in BMX. Oh, a little bit.
Yeah, like super trick guys who are doing quadruple tail ups they're running super crazy light bikes.
Yeah, but like in general, like they aren't the engine from like a distance standpoint. It's not an endurance sport. It doesn't have roots in endurance of any sort. So
right, and all the bikes are more or less the same weight. It's all kind of like even ground.
So I mean, it's just like mountain bikes are.
Yeah. But they're underpinned by the problems that's us.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the amount of power we can produce, how much weight we're willing to carry. And I'm saying the bike should be heavier, but Kaz says they should be all made of, should be 10 kilograms and brake all the time.
Yeah, well, then you have your e-bikes, and then everything turned e-bike specific because they had to make heavier parts for e-bikes because they were braking, because you can't put the light stuff that was already braking on a bike that's heavier and get smashed into things.
Do you know what I'm glad that isn't braking anymore? Although I don't understand, or I do think we'll be treading water to a bigger solution. CSUs have got better. I used to go through CSUs every season, a couple.
What's a CSU?
So the crown steerer unit. So it's basically just that steerer is actually just pressed into that fork. And you ride it and it wobbles and it creaks and it creaks and it creaks. And you go off a drop and it will creak and then it'll be good for a bit. But then you say you hit a forward impact, like if you rode into a curb, then it will creak that way for a bit. And nightmare.
I remember getting on a chairlift in Switzerland. What's that bike park near Champery, but it's not Champery? Morgan, yeah. Yeah, and on the chairlift up, you're kind of like going over all of these trails and you're kind of close to them and you could just hear the whole mountain creaking. Like the whole mountain just had like CSUs just crying out.
And one of the reasons we got today, we're talking about today, is that Taj, you are, I think maybe, I think you kind of put too much. I know every time we talk about this, you say, because, I'm at the upper limit of the weight of shocks. But like I said, there are people vastly heavier than you that still want to ride mountain bikes.
And should be able to ride
mountain bikes. All these bloody companies doing all this inclusivity stuff, just make bikes for people that are heavier would be a good bloody start. Anyway.
I mean, genuinely, we're being glib about it, but, and like, Taj is an edge case in terms of how hard he rides, but he's like, there are lots of big dudes who shred.
Yeah, totally. But, we spoke about this and you said that I found quite interesting was I've offered, you to loan me my bikes and you're like, I don't want to break it. So we thought I thought we'd run away with it and just, if there are any product managers listening, I might actually send this to some and I would love to try and do like an indestructible bike, not necessarily if you throw it down rocks, but like just riding. It's heavy enough that it can take a season of riding under Taj and Whistler. It can have a full suspension frame, decent fork that's going to be able to suspend his body weight and he's going to be able to push it. I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
I would love to know, Taj, right now, what if you had to like guess out of all the brands out there, and maybe we can hear it from everybody after, but like, what would you guess would be the strongest? Let's keep it to full suspension bikes. Like, what would you theoretically build? Like, what would you guess would be the closest to being able to handle?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. I mean, I've had people talk to me about how some frames have different whatever the
Boingers.
different things for different weights, like different. What's it called?
Like a tune? Shock tune?
No,
Leverage ratio?
Leverage ratio.
Yeah.
Different leverage ratio for different weight riders. I think that sounds like they're at least thinking about the problem. I'm still, frankly, terrified of carbon. I don't know if that's rational at all, but I'm so used to steel, and that's all I know, and I kind of know what to feel when steel's going bad.
I mean,
That's
I will say,
probably silly.
I want to say that it terrifies me to think about, like, anybody riding at a level where their steel BMX, they can feel when it's flexed out. Like, that is kind of insane to me. Just like to put that much stress through those heavy ass steel bikes.
Well, different times, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I lived on my bike at that time, rode many hours every day. I knew, you could feel everything.
Yeah, fair enough.
I probably couldn't feel that now, but
Kaz, what would you build Taj today? Like right now, just off the top of your head.
Could you
what
also
would you build 'em?
include, like, don't go into wheels, but if you could do frame and fork, that'd be sick. And
Yeah.
shock.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably just like a raw Madonna,
Yep.
just because big bearings, and they do offer 2 rocker links, I believe, so you can change the leverage ratio, so you can make it ones for heavy riders. I can't remember where the weight split is, but you could do that.
How tall are you, Taj?
6'1",
How big of a bike do you want?
large. So
Like what do you know what reach you have right now?
I have no idea.
I think you'd be a pretty solid large.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
It's a shame. I would loan you my medium raw Madonna.
Well, it
if
might
you want.
work for him too, because BMX background, remember?
Yeah, right.
BMX background. Oh, it come full circle.
20-inch wheels on it.
Perfect. We'll get it done.
Yeah, yeah.
What fork would you think, Kaz? What's impressed you with either stiffness, reliability, or are we just thinking, how long until we just put, downhill fork on there?
I mean, you could go dual crown, but I think you can get away. I'd like to think you can get away with a modern, like 38 mil stanchion fork that's being stiff enough for almost any weight rider.
I would put a dual crown fork on for him just to remove the variable.
But I just
Why not?
got new levers to do X-ups
Well, we're
with.
gonna get you the one-sided one from
I
Intent.
think he
The
could,
crazy
I think
one.
he'd be fine. I mean, I'd put him on a Fox 38 and then see how it goes.
All right, unqualified. I have had really good luck with that Manitou Mezzer fork.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know what this means, but it's got 2 air chambers.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, I can get it really stiff, and it hasn't blown up in a season and a half.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That could be good too.
Cool. So we got a fork potentially.
Yeah.
Frame. I think the raw Madonna is a very, very good
Yeah.
shout.
I mean that raw Madonna is, I think, the previous generation is even heavier, but like it's a heavy bike. It's huge bearings. They like the safety factor is pretty high on that thing. I think that's a really solid choice.
And the fact that it comes in polished metal makes it look stronger.
Exactly.
And my choice isn't actually far off. I think it's coming from the right country. It would be a Nikolai. Of course, it would be a Nikolai. Every day of the week.
It's too complicated. I don't know. Taj,
Do you think they're too complicated?
Yeah.
They have like 5,000 geometry options.
Yeah, but forget that. Just think
And
of the
Taj
layout.
doesn't like super slack stuff. He likes sensible.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's running a reverse angle set on his hardtail, remember?
Oh, yeah, but so we're talking about in the third person. He's right here. It's like he passed away from it there. Taj wouldn't have stood for this.
I kind of like it better. I feel like you guys are going to solve my problem for me and then come back to me with a solution.
You can get less. I basically just want the bread and butter Nikolai.
Is that even a thing?
It is a
They make
thing.
that?
Hear me out.
It's a drop down menu, bread and butter.
But what I mean is they do some ones like their trail bike. I think it's called the Saturn. No. I want like the Geometron that Chris Porter is into. That's just got square tubes and mixed with the perfect like big. Nothing fancy. It would be perfect.
What kind of nothing like I like Nikolai's. They're
Yeah.
really sick.
Okay,
But they're the opposite of nothing fancy. They're not workmanlike and utilitarian.
I'm going to say this really quick, just in case they're listening in Germany, so they won't be able to understand it if they're not that used to speaking English. They're just the right amount of ugly. They would never build a bike that ugly that wasn't strong.
Are oranges strong?
So I'll go back to normal now. I don't know. I think they're pretty strong, but there's probably a lot of flex. But you know what I mean? If you were to build a strong bike, it's probably not going to be the most sophisticated. It's just the right amount of agriculture, agricultural.
I
you know
don't
what I mean?
see. I don't see Nicolas as agricultural at all.
No, I think they're like machined to like the nth degree. Like
I think they're precision tool. They're like a really expensive chainsaw. Do you know what I mean? They are precision made, but they're not elegant. I think they're probably really well made, which is good. I think they're probably really strong. I think they're probably overbuilt, but they're not. They're not like elegant, like or bougie. Like,
I'm sticking with the raw.
Yeah, let's put this
You
to the
think they're
comments.
raw?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Raw was what I
I
had
mean, you
in
get
mind.
2 frames and just hit them into each other until one of them breaks. Is that a good test?
Yeah, we just swing them.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I think
Is that like
that's-
the egg when you
Yeah.
do like the eggs against each other?
Oh my god, we're going to play conkers with bikes all the way to the top. Oh my god! And then we just have like that's a great.
This
idea.
seems like a great commercial opportunity.
This sounds like a great from commercial break as we collect ourselves. So let's take it for a pause there. Öhlins is a brand steeped in history and not just in mountain bikes. You might know them for equipping Loic Bruni as he's won multiple downhill world championships, but their expertise actually started out in motorsport. Having expanded their range into downhill and then enduro, the Swedish company is now ready to take on the XC World Cups with their new range of lightweight suspension that aims to bring control and superior damping to your short travel bike. Visit Öhlins.com to learn more. So, Brian, you were just talking to me about Aya Texan, and you're saying this means to go tip to tip or butt to butt.
Yeah, tit to tip or butt to butt.
Can you explain?
Just with your eggs.
With your eggs.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
yeah,
Right,
Aya Texan.
important bit of context.
Yeah.
Yeah, heavens. But I think that a Nikolai might just be the last man standing in terms of the bike conkers. Can you think of anything stronger though, Kaz? Genuinely, because I'm gonna probably forward this to the people that we mention. So why haven't we mentioned, let's be honest, why haven't we mentioned some of the big North American brands? Your Trek, your Specialized. Surely they'd be there like, well, hold on. We make bloody good bikes and they're made of carbon fiber.
I think we were talking about this before the episode. I think if you are making a mass market bike for the most amount of people, you are shooting for the middle of the bell curve in terms of like stress that somebody puts through a frame, weight of your addressable market, all those things. And Taj pushes bikes a lot harder than the person that's like, there's no mood board at major bike manufacturers that have a picture of Taj up on the wall, I don't think.
49-year-old washed up fat pro.
This is our audience. We're going for it.
It's like, you ever seen that Always Sunny thing where there's just like the thing Charlie did with all the arrows and stuff, and it's just like Taj Specialized HQ.
How about, okay, I got a question. $250 BMX frame seems stronger to me than any option you're giving me. How can that be? How does that make sense?
I don't want to even sully the conversation with the idea that mountain bike companies sometimes just make really expensive bikes because people will buy them. I don't want to suggest that in any way. I think I'd do a disservice to us all. But I think that I think that a lot of bikes for a lot of people could be just as good, but 10% heavier and significantly less refined perhaps, but do largely the same thing. Do you think that'd be fair? Like, I know, I think that I think it betrays our road cycling roots that we have. Like, there's so much about our bikes is for lightweight. You know, even the way we look at our gear ratios on a mountain bike. The fact that we think we need a 10 tooth out the back, but that actually just giving us 12 gears and more selection when we actually go uphill. When are you spinning out on like a 32, or even Kaz, you're a big man, you had a 34 because you're an absolute madman. When are you spinning out on a 3410 if it's not on a road? 36, but Jesus.
So many horsepowers.
I'm conscientious objector to riding anything over a 32. In fact, not even that conscientious. I'm mindless about it, and I refuse.
So when you're a bike manufacturer, it's a horrible place to be because you actually can't affect very much. Like your product manager is hamstrung by the amount that people are willing to pay, the number of middlemen in your supply chain, and then like the weight of the parts that you need to put on and the price of them. So the only thing you can really affect is the frame as a competitive advantage. So that's, I think, one of the, you're totally right that a lot of this is road heritage, endurance sport instead of for fun sport kind of heritage. But I think a lot of it too is just as a bike brand, like if you want to be lighter than, or if you want to charge more than the Specialized that you're next to in the shop, you need to find a way to affect something, and you can affect your weight.
But do you think the bike industry or the mountain biking industry has had, you know, Shane McConkey? I heard that, I don't know if he was the first to do it, or there's something I just misunderstand, but he went onto the snow with water skis and was like, wow, for powder, this is way better. And it was like a big paradigm shift. Mm-hmm. Do you think, because even some of these like geometry things, you know, progressive geometry has been fairly drip fed through. Do you think we've had our water ski moment, Kaz?
As far as geometry goes, or just bikes in general?
As far as bikes in general, do you think we've actually really been like, wait a minute, this isn't, in our case, like on skis peeing, this isn't cross-country skiing, this is something absolutely different. And is that e-bikes perhaps?
Oh.
No, I don't want to talk about Shane McConkey and e-bikes in the same breath, but McConkey's awesome and e-bikes are just fine. But I think
e-bikes are just fine. You love e-bikes, Kaz.
They're fine, but if they went away...
Are you telling me that you only ride e-bikes now?
That's not true.
Was that not true?
Yeah, it's not true.
Oh, I swear.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a private... Oh, no, you did say that was off record.
Yeah. No, it's really not true. But no, I think that like as far as a dramatic shift as, you know, the reverse camber skis or anything like that, it could be equated to mountain bike geometry. Like I think we've seen that, but there's still so much that can be improved and is gradually getting better, but I don't think there's like that drastic. We can talk about the law bikes drivetrain if you want, Brian.
No,
but like,
no. I mean, wouldn't you say that the water ski moment is obviously the Grim Donut?
Well, yeah, we did that. That's like the
maybe, yeah.
But then if you look, it's funny because there's actually a lot of parallels to ski world, how it progresses, and the mountain bike world. Because skis they had all kinds of crazy shapes, reverse camber, like a water skis reverse camber. They got super fat, and now they've kind of come back. Where they've almost they like went too far.
Are we going back to 67-degree head angles?
If Taj has something to say about it,
in charge of that. But no, I think reach numbers though. If you look at reach numbers across the board, like I think a size large, even just last season or season before was like 490, and now this next coming year, everything's pulling back a little bit, like 5 or 10 mils in some cases. I think they realized they might have gone a little too far, and it's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially saw that in the thing I thought was really fascinating about the reach numbers growing was, we got to the seat tube angles that maybe we needed. The reach angles kept on growing, and it's like they forgot that humans were meant to ride these bikes. Like 650 effective top tubes. They're just like, well, the seat angle's good, but let's just put like a 495 reach on it and see what happens. And it'd be like, this is for the same size person. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it does seem like they forgot that you have to actually reach the handlebars because it's rideable going downhill, which is fine. But then if you're pedaling uphill, and it felt super stretched out. So I think we've seen like some moderation in that, and I think there's obviously still some room for geometry to change. But I think we've gone past the drastic shift, at least for now. I can't think of. I mean, if I could think of it, it'd be to make more money, I guess. But
isn't it like all of those changes? They're much sexier than this one will last slightly longer.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what we're talking about.
I think.
Well,
heavens.
So I guess I didn't really start riding mountain bikes till.
I thought you said I wasn't really listening.
No. What? No, I didn't really start riding mountain bike till 6-7 years ago. But all through my BMX career, people would always be like, "You gotta try mountain bike, you know." And like that was kind of any BMXer could hop on a mountain bike and do some basic tricks, and it was.
Or could like just hop on a mountain bike and win joyride slopestyle.
Well, theoretically, I guess, but. That happened.
That happened.
Well, I could have been me, maybe. Who knows? But people would tell me that kind of thing. I'd get on them and they would just feel absolutely wretched, just terrible to ride. I hated them. And then in the last some years, I mean, maybe this is the watershed moment or whatever you're talking about, but they started to feel really good and really fun. And I'm complaining about stuff breaking, but they were like strong enough to ride hard, where before they weren't. Like your bottom bracket story.
Oh God, it was so bad. I don't want to get all kids these days, but you know, genuinely when I see some people complain about issues on bikes, I'm like, man, bikes used to be horrendous.
I remember doing my first World Cup, which was at Lord's, and I was in this privateer team that had 3 riders, and we ran out of rims. I was just building wheels non-stop. Like every single run it'd be a run of rim. And when I was working for a bigger team, each rider had 4 sets of wheels for a race weekend. Just because if you went up once, basically one was always set up. So you have your race tires, duplicated set, then you'd have the wet, and then you'd have the spare. So if you went up, did one, bam, went up and did another one, bam, you still had whilst you were manically rebuilding. And now it's changed. Now at Pinkbike Racing, we had on this reserve wheels, which I think are really good for what it's worth. I think we did 1 rim the whole season, something like that.
Was that the Jackson's
crash? That was Jackson. Yeah, and he loved it. And also, I think that the worst thing you can do for wheels, at least when I ding or hit rims, is actually when I'm not riding fully committed, and I'm committed enough to get into stuff, but then I drag the brakes under the compression of as I'm trying to scrub off speed, and there's just square edges,
slamming it into the back of them. Yeah.
I think that's what happens on Fridays at World Cups.
BMX went through that too. Like we used to go through wheels like crazy on vert ramps. You know, you could go through 3 a session, and then now they're good and they're less spokes. You know, for a while they were trying to do like double the spoke count, so wheels would have 95 spokes. It was absolutely absurd. And then now 36 spoke wheels are fine.
And why do you think? I'm sorry, maybe I'm just completely naive to BMX. Do you think there'll ever be carbon BMX bikes taken up in terms of street? Because, you know, you do see the sort of some of the brand language around carbon and mountain bikes. You know, Santa Cruz did that video ages ago, and they were just hitting it into things. Do you think that could ever be taken up?
Well, you're touching on a whole different. Yeah, so there's some carbon wheels out there and some carbon frame attempts, and BMX racing is certainly all carbon forks and terrifyingly light. But I think I've owned a BMX company, and I've worked at Odyssey and Sunday, and like I got to see the design process, and it's actually maybe what mountain bike needs a little bit of is like, okay, this is the deal. We can't change the frame. We can't make it look crazy. We can't do anything weird, but we're going to try to make it stronger, and it's still going to look the same on the outside. Oh, and it can't cost anymore. It's got to be $400.
So wait, why couldn't they make it look different? Was it just the market wouldn't accept it?
Yeah. I mean, it's like that's kind of the cool thing is like, this is the playing field. This is the BMX bike. It's a steel triple triangle frame. That's all you get. You can't make it a monocoque. It's too weird. No one will ride it. Whatever.
So what we need is mountain bikers to be even more judgy and like refuse to ride anything different.
No, what we need is mountain bikers to say, okay, this is the bike. No more kooky ideas. We're just going to make this stronger and cheaper.
Subscribe.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
So that's the point, though, because why don't you think? But I think people have tried to, maybe Privateer have tried to make strong, cheaper bikes rather than anything too fancy. Are there any other brands that spring to your mind, Kaz, that are maybe doing the basics really well?
I mean, it's brands like Marin. I think we kind of just finished.
Marin.
Yeah, Marin. But we just wrapped up our value field test, and you know their bikes tend to be affordable, but they have modern geometry and like solid component specs. So that's a company that I think is doing a good job of kind of catering to your everyday rider that doesn't want to spend a ton of money, but also doesn't want a bike that seems like a budget bike. So I think, and that's one good thing that we've talked about so many times, but geometry is really important. And then, so I guess the next thing is to make sure it's strong so it lasts. If you bought the good geometry bike, you also want it to last.
Do you think that the change in the geometry have made bikes stronger? Like just having a head tube that isn't getting loaded, like having the suspension that goes
I think
in
I
the
would
right
argue
direction?
that computers have made bikes stronger.
Well, that too. Yeah.
Like I think that's a lot with everything though. I think with ours,
you buy the bike and then you just talk about it on the computer rather than ride it, and it lasts forever.
Yeah. But like even with like the just being able to analyze how the bike will react without actually having a rider on it, like the software now compared to what they were using 20 years ago is so much greater.
I will replace you guys with an AI bot so quick.
Oh, I know.
So, something I just want to talk about, because I think that just had a thought there. You know, sometimes we know theoretically we have an understanding to be one thing, but anecdotally we know it to be otherwise. For instance, I would say that heavy wheels and tyres, and it's only my opinion, but theoretically less unsprung mass leads to better bike performance all round. But anecdotally I would say my bike tracks and grips better when the wheels and tyres are really heavy. Do you think, well, what's your inference with that, Kaz? How do you feel about it? And why can't we just get some really fucking heavy tyres? Like 1,500 grams, and they just be. I want more options.
I mean, you can.
There's
lots
exist.
of 1,500
And I
grams.
think the reason
most
of them have sticky
like
rubber.
Maxxis and Conti tap out about 12.
That's great.
1,500.
I think that's fine.
No, but there should be an option of 1,500. Why not? Why not just make them really heavy?
Because no one wants those except you.
I do.
Yeah,
I
except
want
you. You can put we'll
No, but
make them
the thing
heavier.
is,
We'll put weights.
If you've got a downhill bike,
you could just run tubes, downhill tubes. Remember those?
downhill tubes in a tubeless system.
Just stick them in there.
True. But I think that, so much emphasis is put. I don't know. I think it's kind of a backwards thing. Like, so much emphasis is put on, damping on our forks, sophisticated damping, and then put light tires on their bike. I'm just like, oh god.
Yeah, but the tires are undamped.
What?
Your tires are like undamped. You can't control the damping in your tire.
Well, yes, you can. because damping is inherently linked with spring rate. So if you want a thicker casing, you can then run a lower spring rate, which means the tire doesn't rebound.
Right, but
so
I can just
quickly.
increase the air pressure or turn a dial on my fork. Where the tires, you're stuck with it, so you can't adjust it for conditions.
But it's like having a base damp on your fork or your shock.
But it just stays like that.
Taj is like dying here.
I know, but you know that I'm right. Surely.
No, I definitely don't know either.
So
I don't want 1,500 gram tires
let
on
me
my
understand.
bikes.
Let me understand, right? So if you run
Fully rigid.
a tire
Yeah.
that is heavier, it rebounds slower. And if you run a tire with lower pressure, it rebounds slower. Why would you want a quicker rebounding tire?
Well, it doesn't rebound so fast that it affects it in a negative way.
But have you ridden the Hans Dampf?
That has more to do with the tread pattern.
No, I'm just hitting you where it hurts because I know you don't like that tire. I was just like,
Me and Hans don't get along, but I'm not with your agreement I don't follow your argument that it needs to be a lot heavier, but I am happy that we have more options than ever. And I do tend to run heavier tires than I could get away with. Like I know I could run XC tires.
I feel like most of Henry's MO is to take a thing that you do, but then argue it from a point where it's just past its reasonable.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
He
to egg
pushes it
you on.
further. Yeah, because if you follow Henry's line of reasoning, I'd be on a 50-pound bike, and I wouldn't like it, and I don't.
But I think that similarly, I would say that Kaz's MO is to just. He knows I'm right. He knows I'm right, but he enjoys being too sensible.
There's no
But make
point
it
if you can because I'm going to argue that things should be strong and light. Like I always want them to be. That's better than strong and heavy.
But
like, but that's the goal.
But it's not necessarily, because we've got to think about what we do to these bikes and how we ride them.
Yeah, you smash into things.
Yeah, you smash into things.
That's
and
what strong
things
point is for.
But do you want a light hammer or do you want a heavy hammer? You want a heavy hammer.
I want the right one, the right
less.
tool for the job. I think that's the saying. Yeah,
Sensible Kaz.
yeah.
Sensible
I'm gonna stick
Kaz.
with sensible here.
Let's get back to the question you had, Taj, about $250 BMX frames. And how it just feels so much. Well, it just is so much stronger. And I mean, I've been kind of thinking about it a bit. Like, part of that answer is it's fucking triangles.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Right?
20-inch wheels.
Little wheels.
No moving, no hinges and springy bits.
No boingers.
There's totally, of course, I understand the reason. But I do think, I mean, because it's always something new. It's always the new thing. It's always new. It's always some straight off the testing computer product. Whereas BMX has had 50 years of trying to perfect the same steel frame.
And it was more iterative, like, yeah, well, it broke there, so let's make that part stronger. And then
Instead of like, redesigning it and trying a new type of metal.
And I think that that's a huge thing. Like, for me, one of the biggest problems in the mountain bike industry is, I think it's good that we use computers. FEA is great, big fan, but I think we always try and revolutionize the design every time. And like, Kaz, you got a bike arrived today for you that is a new bike that'll launch soon, and I'm actually really excited to see that it is mostly the same as the last bike that they produced.
Yeah,
And
if you made something good, you don't need to totally overhaul the next. And that's it's obviously a thing that mountain bikers are guilty, or the mountain bike industry is guilty of. It needs the new latest thing. Where like, I feel like BMX and even like the skate world, you kind of have your tool for the job, but it's more about what you're doing with it. Where mountain bikers, all of us just nerd out on this little nuances that most people aren't even feeling on the trail, but they want to. And plus they spent $8,000, so they want to be justified that their thing is amazing. And where it's like, really, I mean, personally, as much as it's my job to dork out about bikes, like as long as it works, I just want to ride in the woods, and I like trails more than everything. So like, that's my focus, but I don't always actually understand why the mountain bike industry needs to like reinvent the wheel, to use that phrase, over and over again, where it's like, bikes are pretty good now and they can get a little better, but why not go with Taj's point and just make them cheaper and stronger? And
I'll contradict myself. The other side of it, I guess, is that the bikes have gotten so good and so capable that like, I have lots of friends who didn't spend 40 years riding BMX who can now ride super gnarly trails that I'm afraid to ride because of the bike. Like, they have decent bike skills, but like,
I love Taj after riding one day in the park with me is telling the story. He's looking at me the whole time for the listeners at home. He's just like, people on these downhill bikes, they can just get there in anything. I'm like, Taj, stop looking at me.
I'm not. Of course I'm not. But I do think it's amazing. All my like complaining aside, I think it's amazing how open mountain biking is and accessible is to people just by having a good bike. Like, it does a lot of the work.
you can go real fast, and not really know what you're doing for sure. Bikes will bail you out.
Yeah, it's
That's
funny.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny that goes back to the ski world too, because when like fat skis first came out or powder skis, there was like this whole people were getting up in arms. Like the crusty skiers were like, oh, but now like beginners are gonna know how to ski powder. Like they didn't have to go through, they didn't have to suffer like we did. And there's
Sounds
that
exactly the same.
It sounds exact. I pretty much said that exact sentence structure, but just swapped out the relevant words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can now ride gnarly stuff, and they didn't have to ride bridle tracks.
Those big wheels are dumbing down the trails. You know, those fat skis are making it too easy for everybody. It's funny.
The keepers of the gate over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually given up on gatekeeping.
Oh
yeah?
proud of you.
Yeah.
You're just up in your ivory tower.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get up there because the fucking tires I'm carrying too heavy up for the stairs. No, I think that I've never enjoyed my mountain biking more. I'm more in love with mountain biking than I ever have been. But for some reason, certain aspects of, to be honest, mountain bike culture, maybe I'm just getting to my 30s and you just give less of a shit about things. But I've never given less of a shit about what other people do on mountain bikes. I'm more just like, all right. You know, I realise that lots of things about mountain biking culture aren't for me.
I just watch it. I picture you watching some amazing video and just being like, huh. And then
Yeah,
you just close it.
I watched that Brandon Semenuk video yesterday and I just thought, like, wow, getting paid. They're getting
You're
paid.
so dead inside.
Yeah,
They are getting
I don't
paid.
like that.
They're getting paid by the time each time they cut up a clip. That's what they want, like piece rate. Like if we put 100 different clip transfers in, that, like, just good God, calm down. Just, it's cool. It's fine. Isn't it? Did you watch that? And did that get you excited to ride bikes?
I did like it. Yeah.
I mean, it was sick. There was so many, like, I just wanted to watch them ride.
I know.
I just wanted to watch them ride.
I think I liked it because I do like when people get mad at things for no reason. And you just got to see, like, for free, just a couple minutes of Semenuk doing what he does best. And then people got so mad about the editing, as if they could put together any edit or ride anywhere. It's like,
I wasn't mad.
I'd like to anger that
apathetic,
cause.
and I want to make that clear.
Okay, that's good. But like, I also do get the point that it was edited choppily, but I liked it, and mostly because I had enough little.
And
What do you think, Taj, when you watch some of the like sort of slope guys do their thing?
Well, I watched that one. I thought it was awesome. I agree, especially that there was a bit of editing nonsense that kind of took away from it in my mind. But
Here's the story. Would you rather see Brandon Semenuk edited, but twice as much as that, or me riding, but unedited? That is brutal. Can we get some kind of like click through on the site? Like a minute of Brandon Semenuk riding, but you might have some kind of seizure, or me riding and it's just one take.
That's why I rode in front of you with the camera strapped to my back.
Oh yes, that's a point.
So actually, I got it with this. That is a kind of a big difference between like the way they film BMX edits and mountain bike edits these days. Like BMX always seems it's about the long shot. Like you can see, especially street stuff, where you see the whole sequence of like went here to here to here and did a whole bunch of tricks, and then mountain biking is like chop 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 chop. And
mountain biking is cinematic and street.
Yeah, it gets artsy when it's like BMX. They find like the goofiest like old song that wouldn't fit with the riding, and then it makes it work amazing. I don't know, like.
I mean, I think I don't know
if that's accurate, but that's how my perception from
it's a lot less overproduced than normal mountain bike videos for sure.
But sorry, what do you think of the current, you know, as Brian was saying, sort of these slopestyle riders doing these artsy edits? Does it get you pumped to ride, or would you rather? Is that what do you consume mountain biking medium much, or BMX media for that matter?
I mean, you know, since I've been helping draw stuff for Pinkbike, I try to pay attention, but How do you say it? I like edits that have feeling to them, and I think that's hard to get across. There's only a few people that can really pull that off, I think. But like when it's massively overproduced, it's the same thing that happens to music when it gets really overproduced. It's run through too many filters and it's too clean, and I want that emotion and that rawness. I want to see a trick landed less than perfectly, and it's on the edge of killing someone,
like Caleb Halonka. Is it
Caleb Halonka?
Yeah, his
that guy's sick.
Lights Out edit was so great because it was visceral, right?
Yeah,
he was just an animal on a mountain trying to survive, and that was bloody cool.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to be death defying. I guess I don't want. It doesn't have to be. It's literally going to kill you, but like I want it. I just want there to be feeling it, like it meant something to this person, and there's those few riders who can do something and it slows down time when you watch it, and it just feels real. I don't know.
I really liked in that last Brandon edit that on the banger, if anybody doesn't want to get spoiled, like just fast forward this, but yeah, it's like the big half cab off the off the drop thing. And it's like, for Brandon, it's less than perfect. He's kind of like, you can tell it was, if it was a normal thing, he would go back and clean it up. But I love how like, that showed just how fucking scary that was.
Yeah,
like, there's no way.
He was like, that's good enough.
Fuck yeah, that's good enough.
But I thought that was actually something I hadn't seen in one of his edits, actually, like that sort of almost not perfectly
vulnerability.
Perfect. Yeah.
I will say I tend to like BMX edits better than mountain bike ones these days. Like the things that make, because it's things I haven't seen a million times. They don't seem like they follow the same tropes as the mountain bike video thing. Like even, I don't know if you saw the Jason Watts edit from like,
well, yeah, he's awesome.
But obviously the rider matters, but then you watch it and you're like, oh, that's like next level, and it's like pushing it, and it's just like
he's got his own thing going on. It's rad. Of course, there's a lot of generic stuff too.
Yeah.
In that world, but yeah, that's a great one.
So Taj, speaking of feeling, and I think that I think some people do have kind of like, and I consider myself one of these people, so I'm just preparing myself to cringe as I say it. But sort of like cycling is a quite romantic endeavor in some ways. It's self-propulsion. It's so many things to so many different people. I get the sense, talking about the way that you feel about edits, you're similarly have a similar view. What was the zenith for you? Did you have an edit that you ever did where you thought, wow, that one means the most to me of all the ones I did? Was it following you down A line?
That edit
released soon.
Well,
I can understand why.
It's close. No, I got to work with all kinds of rad people. Probably my Etnies forward part. That's the video part.
I was going to be so mad if you said anything other than that.
Well, so when I got to work with Dave Perrick and some other friends filming and working on it, and those are the guys who everything they always did, it always made it look the way it felt, or maybe even better, which was really cool.
Yeah, nice.
And actually in that time I was progressing a lot. I had made up a lot of the stuff that's in the part, so that was all cool. But like, that's what I wanted, is to get across some of how it felt to how it looked. And I don't know how to do that. That's the camera people pulling that off, Like I know how to make it feel good and tell them when it felt good, the trick, but they're the ones who have to figure out how to put that on film.
Cool. I think actually one last thing. We do need to talk about A-Line.
Yeah.
I rode A-Line for the first time yesterday. It's a bike trail in Whistler, for those that don't know. It's got some yumps. Yep. Big old yumps. Actually, not that big for some people. I think they're perfectly adequately.
They're pretty good.
sized.
Yeah, they're good sized.
Yeah, I think people kind of like, I don't know, people I've noticed, chatting to people in the gondola club and whatever, I think it's uncool to say they're big. I think it's very cool to be like, A-Line, huh? Like it's like, 1 meter across. But actually, I think some of them were quite big, and you're going quite
big
quickly.
Jumps, yeah.
I was like, for me, that romantic feeling wasn't really there. I was just like, But apparently I'm doing it wrong. Hey, Kaz?
Yeah, I just feel like you're really dead inside still. How could
Still?
When
did I... I like how me and you know what we're inferring to, but none of the listeners do.
It's just a continuation. Yeah, it's just some inside. Yeah, but like I don't know. I mean, you're obviously at the bike park, so you know kind of what to expect.
You're obviously going through something.
No, that's separate.
So I'm obviously at the bike park.
You're at the bike park. You take a chairlift up and you go down, and I think if you rode A-Line, it like meets and exceeds your expectations for what a bike park trail would be like. It's a bunch of hopefully perfect jumps. Like sometimes they're not as perfect as they could be, but they're super well built. You can hit them. There's plenty of time to do tricks or whatever you want in the air. You land, and there's another one. You get like 80 jumps by the time you're at the bottom. Yeah.
I guess for me, I'd like it if they were just a bit more challenging. Not challenge. I'm not asking anything gnarly. I'm really not. But I think if you look at the way that maybe
Henry Quinney learns to flip.
Yeah, I mean, just do more tricks. Like learn something.
Well, I don't do any, which is the problem.
Yeah, just try take a handoff.
But like, I think that if you look at like the way that the jumps are built,
can you teach him like a slippery salmon next time you guys go?
Salmon,
yeah, or jammin' salmon.
Yeah, sure. No, I have an opinion on this. I think that trail.
You're actually the authority as well, so this will be the truth.
I think that trail is. It's a roller coaster ride, and you take your bike up to the top and you get locked in, and you get to fly through the air. There's no better feeling in the world.
Good.
Yeah.
And it's simple. It is simple. It really is. You're going fast, and there's terrible consequences if you screw it up, but like it's actually really forgiving, and you just you could probably do it all seated on your saddle, but that's really fun.
But I guess I understand. I think for me, the way that the feeling that I'm searching for when riding a bike is that I'm focused enough to be completely present and centered. And when I rode it, I was like, I don't really feel that present.
That's the beauty of it, because you can zone out so hard and just do A-line laps.
Well,
It's like your
fair
moment
enough.
of zen. You're just like, this is all just, it just flows. And that's the whole point. Like,
Guys, I want to be clear. We have to come to a conclusion on this because we are not allowed to have a different opinion. We have to all decide together,
that's
and then
true.
that's the end of it. Like, we are all going to have that opinion forever.
Okay,
I
together.
don't think A-line needs to change for
No,
Henry
I'm
to meet
the-
Henry's
yeah.
needs.
I just don't think I'm going to ride it.
That is a
I
last.
can
you
see
know,
that.
which
You'll
is-
be one of those people that's like, oh, A-line, I'm just too good for A-line.
No,
And
no,
that's
no,
a
no, no.
thing.
It's not that. Please
It's not
don't-
hard
please
enough.
don't-
I need lippier jumps.
Taj, no, sorry, Kaz, please don't paint me as that. It's not because I'm saying I'm too good. I'm just saying that I think that in the same way that I know I want something that just.
How many laps did you do?
I just did the one.
One lap.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Like, yeah. So your first lap down, you just cleaned everything perfectly, and then you're
Yeah.
like, that's enough.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
You got every single.
there was
every,
one that I tagged.
But that's because I was leading and I tagged it.
You get all like the right side lines where it's a little bit bigger than the
I
left.
don't know. I mean, I was just going through.
No, we skipped those.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You got
I mean,
the
it was
mood
fine.
booter.
It was fine.
All
I
that
just,
stuff.
I was just like, huh. But there's,
I don't
there's
even
tech
know.
you can ride.
Maybe if you
Well,
had
you can
like
do both. It's a bike park. The chairlift just
I
brings
know.
you up.
I know. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying it wasn't.
I think I would give it like 10 more tries.
Okay, I'll do it 10 more times. We'll do
Yeah.
we'll do a countdown. And
Yeah.
on the 11th one, I have to mandatorily
Yeah,
enjoy it.
I'll go 10 laps in a row with you on A-line, and we'll see what it's like by the end. I'm happy to do that.
I admire your style. It's like the parent who's trying to get their kid into soccer. I'll be out in the garden with you every night.
You'll like it or not. I mean, it's fine if you don't like it, then. But
No, you're right.
But it's
But
worth
also, I do
more than
like
one
being-
run.
I do like being contrarian, and I do like winding you up.
Yeah.
And that is something that
Yeah.
is more pleasurable to me than 1,000 tech
I
runs.
know. But for everyone that's out there, I don't just ride A-line all day. Sometimes I do dirt merchant. But that's what the bike park's great, because you can just alternate. You do some jump stuff, and then you go the next trail over, and it's techie, and then
Park Rat, Kaz.
So do you go and swap your downhill bike for a single crown freeride bike when you do get A-line run, and then
I just
go
put
back
heavier
to-
tires on between
Yeah,
the lap. Yeah,
totally. I go freeride bike for A-line jumps, swap it for the downhill bike for the tech. Might bring the slope style bike out for crank it up,
Yeah.
and just keep it moving.
Yeah.
And on that perilous note, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you everyone for listening to our podcast. Product managers, I'm coming for you with this podcast. I might actually make an excerpt to save them listening to the whole bloody thing, because we want them to actually send Taj a bike at some point to actually ride the bloody thing. Thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Do we need music corner?
Oh, we're back again. So we're going to do Music Corner. Sorry, I completely forgot. Basically, this is where we just talk through some of the things that we like, some things we're listening to, some of the things that might, strike a chord of romance or something similar to that. Kaz, what is your submission for Music Corner this week?
My submission is from an artist. Her name is Nilufer Yanya. It's Nilufer, Yanya, and the song's Midnight Sun. And just the way her voice mixed with the way the song's put together, you kind of just listen to it.
And is this Spotify version, or is there a particular live version that you like?
The live version is decent, but Spotify's fine too. Yeah, the album version is pretty good, and there's some cool lyrics. I'm not one that can usually pick out lyrics super well, but these ones piqued my interest enough that I actually read the lyrics, and they're pretty good. So,
Lovely.
Yeah.
Taj, do you have a recommendation for Music Corner, kind of springing this on you?
Oh gosh, sort of. It's not new at all, but I've been when I sit down to draw, it helps to have a record that I can play over and over and over every time I draw, and that's my cue, hour and a half while this music's on. It's been a live record by Magnolia Electric Company. I cannot remember what it's called, but
We can link into it below. You can send me it later.
sure.
I'll drop
Yeah,
it in.
that's been my go-to for almost a year of working. It really it works for me.
Just
My
fire something up.
creativity gets flowing with it.
Nice. Brian, you got a young child. I bet you're going to be like, this is the Happy Clappies farming song. Or something like
Baby
that.
Shark
no,
remix.
Baby
I'll give you a real answer, but I will say first that my child, my son, is absolutely in love with an older girl at daycare, and as a result is obsessed with the Elsa song. And I will say it is a banger. If you listen to the Elsa song
from Frozen,
yeah,
Elsa?
from Frozen, yeah, sorry, Frozen, yeah. Let It Go.
Oh no, I can't.
Oh my God,
I know.
it is a banger. Like
Just-
I've never heard it before.
Are we talking like the Skrillex dubstep remix?
So is that a thing?
I don't know. I mean, probably
I'm sorry. Like it is genuinely
a great
song.
We're not putting this one in the comments.
Okay, I'll give you a real like my version of that Taj, like the work song that just like it's my comfort place is it's by Anwar Brahm and it's called Blue Macam. And I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that sounds
it's
great.
really nice. It's like very calm, peaceful thing. It's like
Nice. I think my submission for Music Corner is going to be a song called Tonight by Beach People. It's a very specific YouTube
Who's it by?
version. I think it's Beach People. But basically, it's one guy, it's a solo project, and I think he ropes in a lot of other session musicians that are his friends. And so he goes by a band name because I think I read about that he felt disingenuous just saying it was just him, which I think is quite admirable, but not something I'd ever do myself. I rely on a lot of people and then just sign things Henry Quinney. But yeah, very nice. It's got a bit of everything. I think it's just a very honest song. And I think that honesty and acknowledgement are some of my kind of favourite artistic themes.
Is it like what's the genre?
I would say it's sort of acoustic, sort of a bit folky, kind of indie pop. But no, it's very, 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 very nice.
Oh, yeah, I'll have a chill mix this week.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say this is pretty relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nice. Well, cool. Well, I hope you enjoy Music Corner, and we're actually going for real this time. And you won't hear from us again until next week. Thanks, guys.